This video is made possible by Second Call Defense. Second Call Defense provides immediate, upfront legal protection for a member who is forced to use any legal weapon for self-defense. So protect yourself today with Second Call Defense. I did. You'll find the link in the description. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm super grateful for everything you do. Now, let me remind you that you can also find us not only on YouTube, but all these other alternative locations as well. And I do encourage you to subscribe to at least one. While YouTube has calmed down a bit, sometimes they do get weird about videos. Sometimes they delete them. Sometimes they threaten gun channels. And right now what they're doing is they're marking videos age restricted, which makes it more difficult to see them. So you might want to check out Rumble, BitChute, the Utah Gun Exchange, GunStreamer, one of those, maybe even Vimeo might have better access for you at times. So I do suggest you subscribe to at least one of the other areas. And then likewise, if you like to listen to podcasts to and from work or wherever you go, please check out the GunGuyTV Firearms podcast. It's available on your favorite podcast player. All right, what did I want to talk with you about today? Yes, I'm talking with you about something old that I've had for a long time. This is my 300 Blackout, and perched majestically on top of my 300 Blackout has for quite some time been this Meprolight M21 sight. Now, you've probably seen a million of them. They've been around for a while. And this one was actually sent to me, I don't know, a couple of years ago or more by Optic's Planet. I'm very grateful that they sent it. When I first got it, I liked the concept. I still like the concept a lot. And I like many aspects of the sight, but it has one glaring deficiency, and I think I've resolved it. And you may already know the solution, but in case you don't, and you have one of these, and you've been troubled by the same deficiency I've been troubled by, or you're planning on getting one, you're going to want to watch this entire video so that you can learn what I've learned, and it's taken me a couple of years to do it, and the suggestion of a viewer, actually, which I'm very grateful for. All right, here's the things I like about the sight before I tell you what the problem was and how I believe I've resolved it. First of all, the sight is made, it's built like a tank. The Israelis built this thing. It's indestructible. I mean, it's all metal. It's harder to break. They've used them for their military, for the Israeli Defense Force forever, and they've got them all over the place, and they just can't kill them. And that's a really harsh environment that they're in. If you treat it like I do, where you're not really out in a harsh environment like that very much, it's going to last you forever. Now, obviously, it's part tritium, and that doesn't last forever, so that is an issue. But for a good 10 or 15 years, probably, you're going to be fine. The other thing I like about the sight is not only the fact that it's built extremely well, it's almost indestructible, is the fact that the insides are built very well and nothing moves on the inside. So when you adjust it for elevation or windage, as far as I can tell, you're adjusting the relationship of the sight as it relates to the metal base. So for windage, you're adjusting the whole sight side to side, and for elevation, you're adjusting it up and down. You're not adjusting the reticle internally. So when you bang on it, beat on it, or whatever, you're not going to have the reticle break loose on the inside because it doesn't move anyway. You're actually adjusting the full sight. So that's a very strong and positive build, and it prevents the sight from getting knocked out of whack very easily. I've dropped this rifle once. It wasn't loaded, thank God, but I did. It slipped out of my hand and ended up hitting the ground and hit the sight. I've banged the sight up against things in the back of my pickup. It's banged around all over the place. It's never been knocked off zero, ever. It's always been on zero, and it's held zero the entire time. Now, it does have the quick release base. I find that to be pointless because once I put it on, I'm never going to take it off. But if you do like that, I have noticed in taking it off and putting it back on, it holds zero each time. So that's a real good plus as well. The other thing I like about it is I do like the fact there's no controls on it. There's nothing to adjust. There's nothing to turn on. There's no batteries to install. So this is another positive of the sight because it runs on tritium in the dark. The little reticle is tritium lit. And we'll talk about reticles here in a minute. And then when you expose it to a light source, it has fiber optics, so it gathers the light, feeds them through the fiber optics, and lights up the reticle. And the fiber optics, you can see the light gathering portion of it is this lighter colored portion here. And then on the front of the sight here, this is where it gathers light, ambient light, and it lights up the reticle for you. Now, before I talk about reticles real quick, let me let you know that these systems work extremely well, except for one thing. In the dark, I find that I can see the dot without any problem. When it's really, really dark, I can see it. When it's super, super bright, the dot is super bright. So if I'm outside in really bright sunlight, that thing lights up like a Christmas tree. And then if I'm out on a cloudy day like we've had today, it dims down because it's collecting less light. So one of the other real good positives about it is that reticle adjusts it on its own to the ambient light source or the situation that you're in where your light is considered. Really bright, not so bright, really dark, it adjusts all the way through. So you're not going to be in a position where you cannot see your reticle, and your battery's not going to die because it doesn't take a battery. So there's a lot of positives associated with that. Now the reticles are different. The one I got, if I had it to do over again, I would get the triangle reticle rather than the dot that I got. There's a small dot, a larger dot, a triangle reticle, and I believe there's an X-shaped reticle of some kind. I got the larger of the two dots. It's okay, but in retrospect, I wish I'd have gotten the triangle because it's a little bit larger, which makes it a little quicker to pick up for quick target acquisition. And yet you still have the tip of the triangle at the top that you can use for precision shooting out to a certain distance where you can really make a really precise shot. So that's kind of a neat combination. And if I had it to do over again, that's the reticle I would get, and that's the reticle I would recommend if you're going to buy this sight. Okay, now that I've told you all the great things about the sight that I can come up with, here's where it crashes and burns, okay? You probably already know this. If you are shooting from a shaded area into a brightly lit area, and you're up against any kind of lightly colored white, light tan, whatever, background, your reticle pretty much disappears because the tritium does not light the reticle sufficiently to be bright enough to work in that bright environment when you are in a very heavily shaded place. So I've found that sometimes at the range, when I'm sitting under the shade in the range and I'm shooting out at 50 yards or 100 yards into a very bright area on a bright day, I have trouble picking up the reticle. And that's a problem, particularly for a combat sight. Now, how did I solve the problem? All right, well, I didn't. Meprolight did. When Optics Planet sent me this sight, they sent me the sight and that was it. What they didn't send me was these two little add-ons I have in my hand. Now this comes in a kit, and it's a kind of a neat little kit. This one here is to keep the front of your sight from reflecting light so somebody doesn't see you and shoot at you. I don't really have a need for that, but it is kind of cool. And this is a polarizer. So what this does is you turn this ring and it darkens or lightens. It restricts, it either opens up the front of the sight all the way so you get all the light transference, or it begins to restrict it and dial it down a little bit. And it just screws on to the front of the sight. So once you have this on the front of your sight, all you have to do is turn this little knob, and as you turn the little knob, it darkens things up a little bit. And then you turn the knob the other way and it lightens it up. So what I found on the range was all I had to do when I was shooting from under the shaded area of the range out to the bright target was reach up and turn this knob a little bit as I was looking through the optic until it dimmed it down enough that my reticle popped up and I could see it. This thing's brilliant. It's a simple solution that doesn't require any batteries, and I have not yet found a situation like that where this didn't resolve the problem to some degree. Most cases it resolved it excellently. A couple of them it was not quite as bright as I'd like it to be, but it was absolutely usable even with my aging eyes in my mid-60s. So I found this to be a jewel. Now, if you are really that concerned about somebody seeing the reflection of your optic and you want to screw that in, you can screw it into the front. I don't know, it bugs the tar out of me because it looks like I'm looking through a cheese grater, so I don't particularly like it. But if I were in a situation where I was worried about that, I certainly would put it on there. It is certainly usable. The sight is usable with it on there. And I have found, I ran, I don't know, a couple of hundred rounds through it with it on there just to test it. And I did find out as I got closer to the end there, I became very accustomed to it and it didn't bother me anymore. At first it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm looking through a heavy screen door or something. But again, it comes off, and if you want to, you can just throw it in your pocket. This now I leave on the side all the time. I only took it off so that I could do the video for you, because this has solved the problem. Now, if you want to go a step further, you can. There is an aftermarket, and by the way, I'll put links to these things in the description in case you want them. There's an aftermarket dealy bob. You like that technical term? There's an aftermarket deal. This is what it is right here. This aftermarket thing, I'll turn it this way so maybe you can see it, is an aftermarket light. And basically it's got a little LED light right up in here. You turn this knob to light it, and then this LED light comes up in here and it sets off a light to light up the fiber optics. So as a result, when you crank that on, you basically have the same type of adjustment 1 through 11 that you would have on an optic where you bought an optic that took a battery. This one does take just these little flat batteries that you buy for every optic under the sun. And I've found that this is also super helpful. Now here's one problem with it, and let me show you that. And that is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it under the light, but I want you to watch this area right here, and then this front area, I'll show you, remember, that this front area is also a light gathering area. This is part of the fiber optic light gathering area of the sight. So keep an eye on this area right here as I turn the knob to 11. And maybe you saw that light up. And there, it'll go away and you can see it light up again. Now what happens is that since that little LED is lighting up the sight, it's also leaking light out of this little spot here. And perhaps you can see that it's, maybe if I turn the weapon, you can see that it's leaking light out of this spot. So if that's an issue for you, then you're going to want to be very wary of this if you're worried about using this in a situation where you think that somebody is looking for you and they're going to spot you. One way I suppose you could resolve that problem is with a little black fingernail polish and just paint in those areas, and that would resolve the problem. But I will put both links into the description. I must tell you, now that I have these additional options with the sight, which frankly were very inexpensive. I mean, the sight's $500 roughly, so they're not cheap. But now that I have these additional little things, I really like the sight a lot. And truthfully, I think I'm going to buy another one. I'm just going to buy the one with the triangle reticle, because I know now how to make it functional in all light situations. Now, eventually, like any tritium run sight, the tritium's going to die. It has a half-life, and at some point it just gets so dim it's not usable anymore. But you're good for 10 years, at least a decade or more, 10, 12 years before you have that problem. And by that time, somebody's going to develop a sight you like better anyway. So anyway, that's it. This is the deal, and this is what I figured out with this sight. I went from being a kind of a fan when I first got it to not so much of a fan after a while, and now I'm a fan of it again. It's a great sight. It's made extremely well. The Israelites made it bomb-proof, really. And with these little additions, these simple little additions, honestly, 99% of the problems of the shooting from a dimly lit area to a brightly lit area are resolved with just turning this stupid little wheel a little bit. And then if they're not, you can always reach over there and adjust the electric deal if you want to buy it. And by the way, I will tell you, whoever made this thing, I don't remember, but I'll put it in the description for you. This thing fits exactly. It's an aftermarket thing, but it looks like it was made by Meprolight. I mean, it's made so well, it fits like a glove. So I was very impressed with that, and it's super easy to install. And frankly, they're very, very inexpensive. So I'll put links to all that in the description. There you go. I'm starting to repeat myself. Have a wonderful week, okay? And wherever you go, whatever you do, be safe.